You did the right thing. You confronted them. You drew the line. You told them clearly what they had done was unacceptable. You were measured. You were calm. You were reasonable. You did not destroy them. You did not go scorched earth. You gave them a chance, because that is what a decent man does. 6 months later, they are back, smiling, friendly, acting as if nothing happened, and you have the uneasy feeling that something is moving beneath the surface, something being arranged, something being prepared. You are not paranoid. You are correct. Machiavelli wrote it without flinching in 1513. An injury done to a man must be so severe that you need not fear his revenge. Anything less is not mercy. It is strategic suicide dressed in civilized clothing. The partial injury is the single most dangerous mistake in power dynamics. The man you hurt but did not finish has become your permanent enemy. And unlike you, he will not hesitate when his turn comes. By minute 23, you will know exactly why Cesare Borgia never repeated the mistakes of his rivals, why Stalin understood what Lenin missed, and the specific conversation Augustus had with his generals in 30 BC that changed the fate of the Roman Empire forever. Stay until the end. There are 7 mechanisms at work when you leave an injury open. 7 reasons the wounded man you pitied will return harder, smarter, and more committed than you. The first one is already unfolding in a relationship you have not yet realized is broken. Chapter Card 1. The Memory of the Wounded. You cut off a friendship 6 months ago. You had your reasons. You were measured about it. You did not trash them publicly. You simply stepped away. You think the matter is closed. It is not closed for them. Every night for 6 months they have been replaying the conversation you had. They have been reconstructing your words in ways you never intended. They have been building a version of you in their mind that justifies their anger. You have forgotten the incident within 2 weeks. They have memorized it forever. Human memory does not work symmetrically. The person who delivered the injury remembers it for days. The person who received it remembers it for decades. This is not opinion. This is well-documented cognitive asymmetry. The brain catalogs pain with more precision, more emotion, and longer retention than it catalogs the act of causing pain. You walked away thinking you had ended something. They were still inside it, running it in a loop, waiting for the moment to close the circuit. You have lived the other side of this. Someone hurt you 5 years ago and thinks you have moved on. You have not moved on. You have simply moved the file from active to archived. If the file ever becomes relevant again, you will retrieve it instantly, fully formed, with every detail intact. They have no idea. Cesare Borgia understood this mechanism in 1502. He had just conquered the Romagna region of central Italy. The population was unruly. His lieutenants had been governing harshly. He needed to consolidate power without inheriting the hatred his administrators had generated. His solution was not diplomatic. It was surgical. He chose his most brutal governor, Ramiro de Orco, the man who had carried out the harshest measures on Borgia's behalf. On the morning of December 26th, 1502, the people of Cesena walked into the town square and saw Ramiro's body laid out in 2 pieces. A bloody sword, a wooden block, a note from Borgia. The message was unmistakable. The harshness had come from Ramiro, not from Cesare. Justice had now been done. The population did not just accept this. They celebrated it. Cesare had understood 2 things at once. First, that leaving Ramiro alive would have created a grudge that could organize against him. Second, that the public execution was not cruelty. It was architectural. It sealed a memory that would otherwise have stayed open in thousands of minds. The wound he closed that day stayed closed for years. The region remained loyal to him as long as he held it. When you finish something with someone, ask yourself one question. Is this ending, or am I just pausing? If it is pausing, you have created a debt you will be forced to pay later. Close it now or prepare for when they collect. The rule: the injury you do not finish is not mercy. It is an appointment. Chapter Card 2. The False Forgiveness. Here is the second mechanism. It is more subtle than the first, and it is the one most civilized men miss entirely. When you partially hurt someone and then try to move on, you are not ending the conflict. You are teaching your enemy something far more dangerous. You are teaching them exactly what you are willing to do and what you are not willing to do. They now have a map of your upper limit. They know where your retaliation stops, and they will operate for the rest of their lives just beneath that ceiling. Most men think forgiveness closes a conflict. In strategic dynamics, incomplete forgiveness does the opposite. It shows the other party that you have revealed your maximum response, and that your maximum response was survivable. They now know what they can do to you and live. This is information you have paid for with nothing and received nothing in return. You have been on the receiving end of this dynamic. A family member crossed a line with you years ago. You did not cut them off completely. You gave them a stern talk. You held a boundary for a few months. Then you let them back in. Now, every holiday, they push just slightly less than the line that got them a stern talk. They have calibrated. You taught them the calibration. Joseph Stalin watched what happened in the 1920s and learned something the old Bolsheviks refused to learn. Lenin had exiled Trotsky. He had exiled, not eliminated. He had drawn a line but left the man who crossed it alive and organized abroad. Trotsky used the exile to build a parallel movement. He published books. He organized followers. He planned a return. From his exile in Mexico, he built what would have been a serious threat to Stalin's consolidation of power. Stalin did not make Lenin's mistake. In 1940, in Coyoacan, Mexico, a man named Ramon Mercader drove an ice axe into Trotsky's skull. Stalin had understood the lesson. Exile is pause. Pause is not victory. This is not an endorsement of Stalin. This is a diagnosis. The men who survive in absolute power environments have always understood something the civilized man forgets. An enemy who continues to exist is an enemy who continues to plan. When you draw a line with someone, next draw it in a place you are willing to enforce absolutely. Not 90%. Not most of the time. Absolutely. The line you will not defend teaches people the exact shape of your real weakness. The rule: the forgiveness that is not complete is not forgiveness. It is a license they will use against you later. Chapter Card 3. The Pride of the Defeated. 3. This one is harder to see because it happens inside the person you hurt, not in your own life. When you injure someone but do not finish them, you do not just create an enemy. You create a specific type of enemy. The wounded narcissist. Their pride now requires that they destroy you. Not for revenge, for self-respect. The person you humiliated in a meeting 6 months ago is not angry at you because of what you said. They are angry because of who they became in that moment, a diminished version of themselves witnessed by others. Their entire identity now requires them to restore the balance. They cannot heal their self-image until they have destroyed yours. This is why partial injuries are so much more dangerous than total ones. A person who is completely defeated can grieve, accept, and move on. A person who is almost defeated cannot. They are trapped between the memory of what happened and the need to undo it. They will spend years in that limbo working toward a single goal. You have felt this on your own side. Someone bested you once. Not destroyed you, just bested you. And you spent months thinking about how you would handle it differently next time. You studied, you prepared, you waited. You were not even consciously planning vengeance. You were simply unable to close the loop until you had restored your sense of self. They are doing the same thing to you right now. Mehmed II, the Ottoman Sultan who conquered Constantinople in 1453, understood this at 21 years old. When he took the city, he did not merely defeat the Byzantines. He did not take their emperor captive for ransom. He did not allow the Byzantine aristocracy to survive in exile where they could organize. Constantine XI, the last Byzantine emperor, died in the final assault. Mehmed searched the bodies personally until he found the corpse. He had the head preserved and displayed. The message was absolute. The Byzantine line of emperors had ended. There was no one to rally around. There was no pretender in exile. There was no wounded symbol to restore. The Ottoman Empire ruled that city for 470 years. Now contrast that with Napoleon's first exile in 1814. The European powers defeated Napoleon and sent him to Elba. They thought they had finished the matter. They had not. Napoleon used Elba to rebuild his network, plan his return, and within 10 months he was back in France, raising an army and marching on Paris again. The 100 days that followed cost 50,000 more lives at Waterloo, all because the European powers had chosen the civilized option. They had wounded his empire, but not his capacity to act. He used the gap to kill thousands more men before finally being defeated again. When you injure someone, ask yourself a cold question. Can this person ever be my friend again? If the honest answer is no, then leaving them alive and free is not mercy. It is giving them the time they need to plan. The rule: pride heals only in one of two ways: through complete defeat and genuine rebuilding, or through restored revenge. You choose which one by how far you took the original injury. Chapter Card 4, The Calculus of Reputation. 4. This mechanism is about how other people read what you did not about the person you hurt. When you draw a line and then fail to enforce it fully, you have not just created one enemy. You have sent a message to everyone watching about what happens when someone crosses you. Every person in your sphere is consciously or not taking notes. How far did you actually go? What was the real consequence? Did the person who wronged you suffer meaningfully? Or did they survive mostly intact and come back into your circle after a few months? Their answer to this question determines how they will treat you from this point forward. Not what you threatened, not what you said, what you actually did when tested. The partial injury witnessed by others is a teaching moment for the entire network around you. It teaches them that the cost of crossing you is survivable. It teaches them that your maximum retaliation is tolerable. It teaches them the exact height of your enforcement. You have been in a workplace where a boss threatened consequences for certain behaviors. You watched what happened when someone actually did the behavior. Either the consequences were brutal and the entire office adjusted, or the consequences were symbolic and everyone quietly decided the rule was optional. You adjusted your behavior accordingly, not based on what was said, but on what was demonstrated. Augustus Caesar understood this demonstration effect better than perhaps anyone in ancient history. After defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra at Actium in 31 BC, he had a choice to make about Caesarion, the son of Julius Caesar, and Cleopatra. Caesarion was 17 years old. He was not leading any rebellion. He posed no immediate military threat. Killing him would have been, in the polite sense, unnecessary. Augustus killed him anyway. He reportedly said in private, "Two Caesars are one too many." He had understood that as long as a biological descendant of Julius Caesar existed, there would always be a potential rallying point for anyone who wanted to challenge his rule. The symbolic threat was more dangerous than any army. But more than that, he was sending a message to every future rival. If you oppose Augustus, your entire bloodline ends, not just you. The message was received. Augustus ruled for 41 years and died in his own bed at 75. Now you are not Augustus. You are not running an empire. But the principle scales down to ordinary life with surprising precision. When someone crosses you and you respond incompletely, everyone who knows about it, including the people who like you, has recalibrated their understanding of your enforcement capacity. The next time you respond to a betrayal, do not think only of the person who betrayed you. Think of the audience. Think of everyone who will privately take note of what you did. Your response is not just communication with your enemy. It is policy transmitted to your entire network. The rule, the consequence you deliver in private, is broadcast in public. Calibrate accordingly. Chapter Card 5, the midpoint of the dangerous. You have made it halfway. 3 mechanisms remain. The next one is the one that will make you most uncomfortable because it contradicts the central story civilized society tells you about strength. You have been raised to believe that holding back is a sign of strength. That the measured response is the mature response, that the person who refuses to stoop to their level has won by taking the higher ground. This is one of the most expensive lies you have been told. It is not untrue in every domain. In small conflicts, in minor disagreements, in relationships, that will continue restraint is often correct. But in situations involving people who have genuinely harmed you and who will not stop restraint is not wisdom. It is postponement of the full cost. The person who chose to hurt you has already decided the rules of the engagement. You do not get to choose a different rule set after they have acted. You only get to choose whether you engage by their rules or refuse to engage at all. The middle ground, where you engage but not fully, is the worst option. It is enough engagement to signal hostility. It is not enough engagement to actually neutralize the threat. You have combined the cost of conflict with the cost of leaving the threat in place. This is not a recommendation for cruelty. It is a warning about partiality. Henry VII of England came to the throne in 1485 after defeating Richard III at Bosworth Field. He had a problem most new monarchs faced. Members of the previous royal house were still alive. Young men with claims to the throne he had just taken. Henry did not kill them all immediately. He tried for years to co-opt them, marry them into his family, bring them into his court, neutralize them through proximity and benefits. It did not work. Plot after plot emerged. Every few years, a new conspiracy, a new pretender, a New Yorkist who had been brought into the fold and then exploited his access to organize against the king. Lambert Simnel, Perkin Warbeck, Earl of Warwick. By the end of his reign, Henry had executed them all anyway. He had simply paid 15 years of stress watching his back, losing sleep, and spending resources on security that he could have spent on governance. The delayed execution had cost him nearly 2 decades of his life. The incomplete solution had simply postponed the complete one while adding enormous interest. His son, Henry VIII, watched and learned. Whatever you think of his other choices, Henry VIII did not leave enemies partially neutralized. When he moved against someone, he moved totally. It is why his reign was more stable than his father's, despite being in many ways more tyrannical. Examine the partial moves currently active in your own life. The friendship you half ended, the business partnership you half exited, the family dynamic you half confronted. Each of these is costing you ongoing energy. Each is a tab that is still running. Close them or commit to them, but do not leave them in the middle. The rule: the unfinished move costs more than the finished one. The only question is whether you pay now or pay compound interest later. Chapter Card 6, The Delusion of Civilization. 6. The one most men get wrong because they believe modern life has repealed ancient patterns. You think because you are not a Renaissance duke or a medieval king, these principles do not apply to you. You are not executing anyone. You are not waging wars. You are navigating office politics, family dynamics, business partnerships, romantic relationships. Surely in this softer world, the strategic logic of complete resolution no longer applies. It applies more than ever. Modern life has not eliminated conflict. It has changed the weapons. In the modern arena, the wounds are reputational, professional, social. The incomplete injury no longer comes back with a sword. It comes back with a carefully constructed story told to the right people at the right moment. It comes back with a documented record pulled out during a dispute. It comes back with a network of allies quietly cultivated over years. And because modern injuries are slower, more civilized, more plausibly deniable, the incomplete ones are even more dangerous than ancient ones. A medieval lord who left an enemy alive at least knew the threat was an army. A modern person who leaves an enemy alive faces a threat they cannot see, cannot track, and cannot counter until it is already executing. Every professional field has this pattern. The co-worker you partially crossed becomes the co-worker who subtly redirects opportunities away from you for years. The business partner you partially removed becomes the former partner whose version of events quietly spreads in industry circles. The family member you partially confronted becomes the relative who shapes how younger generations understand your character. You have witnessed this. Someone you know has spent the past decade paying the compound cost of a partial injury they inflicted in their 20s. Or someone you know has spent the past decade collecting their debt patiently from someone who thought the matter had ended. Lyndon Johnson knew this in American politics in the 1960s. He had a famous operating principle when it came to political enemies. If he needed them, he made them full allies. If he could not make them full allies, he destroyed them totally. He did not leave people in the middle. He did not create partially wounded enemies who could organize against him. He had learned from watching American politicians who did leave enemies partially alive. He had watched what it cost them over decades. The mediocre politicians accumulated partial enemies until they had dozens. The great politicians, by Johnson's standard, understood that leaving no ambiguous middle ground was a survival strategy. You are not in the Senate, but you have a network. That network has long memory, slow grudges, and compound interest on every partial injury you leave open. Close accounts cleanly, either fully restore or fully separate. The middle state is where future catastrophes are built quietly. The rule: modern life has not abolished the strategic logic of complete resolution. It has only made partial injuries harder to see coming. Chapter Card 7, the final test. 7. Last one. This one is the test you will face in the next 30 days, whether you know it or not. Somewhere in your life right now, someone has crossed you. Maybe recently, maybe years ago. You have been sitting in partial response for a while, not forgiving completely, not acting decisively. You are holding a grudge while also tolerating their presence. You are preserving the option to retaliate while also continuing to let them benefit from your network. This is the most expensive position you can be in. You are paying for both options without committing to either. The cost of a full separation, which would be real but finite, is less than the cost of this ongoing middle state, which is real and infinite. The test is this. In the next 30 days, pick one person currently in the partial state and resolve it. One direction or the other. Full restoration or full separation. No middle. This is not about them. It is about you. Every partial relationship you maintain occupies cognitive bandwidth. Every unresolved grudge costs attention. Every maybe enemy who remains in your circle requires ongoing low-level vigilance that you will not notice until you remove them from your life and feel the relief you did not know you had been living without. Machiavelli observed in 1513 that the man who tries to be good in all circumstances will come to ruin among so many who are not good. This is not a call to cruelty. It is a call to decisiveness. You do not have to be ruthless in every interaction. You have to be complete in the few that matter. When the moment requires an ending, end it. When the moment requires forgiveness, forgive fully. The worst of both worlds is the performance of mercy without the substance of it, or the performance of separation without the commitment to it. The strongest people you know are not the ones who keep the most options open. They are the ones who close accounts. They are the ones who do not have partial enemies waiting to collect. They are the ones who moved decisively when a moment required it, and then walked forward without looking back. They did not get that clarity by accident. They paid for it once completely and then never again. The rule: strike once fully or do not strike at all. The wound you leave open will close only on its own terms, and its terms will always cost more than yours would have. A man sits at a desk in lamplight. In front of him is a letter he has been drafting for 6 months. Every version has been too soft. Every version has been a compromise. Every version has preserved a relationship that is already over. Tonight he writes the final version. It is 3 sentences. It is complete. It is final. He does not send it yet. He reads it once, he folds it, he places it in an envelope. Tomorrow morning he will decide whether to burn it or mail it. Either decision will be complete. Neither decision will leave anything open. This is the shape of an ended matter. 7 mechanisms, not for cruelty, for clarity. The partial injury is the most expensive move in power dynamics because it combines the cost of conflict with the cost of leaving the threat in place. The wounded enemy does not forget. The incomplete forgiveness does not forgive. The partial separation does not separate. Close accounts either fully restore or fully end. The middle state is where future disasters are quietly assembled by people you stopped watching. If something in this shifted how you see your own unresolved moves, the subscribe button is there. The next video covers the exact way people in your life are being managed without knowing it. You have been warned.